This is our first attempt. Greetings, Fansplash fans. This is Jesse Swift, joined once again by Tyler Maverickall and a very special guest, Andy McKillip. We are doing a throwback to way back 2 years ago. That is 300 some days times 2. That's a lot of days. It's been a long time that the Fansplash podcast has been in productions, and now we are going audio only to switch things up. So we want to welcome both you and Andy to our first ever audio podcast. Hello, Andy.
Hello, me. You guys all missed the first attempt, which was somewhat insensitive to Robin Williams passing. But here we are in round 2, so let's do this.
And we're not starting it over again.
Nope.
Sorry.
10,000 years.
We weren't going to say who did it. Well, Andy, you are our first guest in this audio-only podcast thing. What we're going to do, for the most part with these audio-only podcasts, is make them interview-based, sort of like what people that like to listen to podcasts
You'll never find the body.
But, damn it, and that was my first question, and now I don't have any other questions to go off of.
I gotta go.
I've got nothing, damn it.
We do have
All right,
faces
boys.
for podcast, audio podcasts.
So we're trying to intertwine it with our active community, the Fansplash Network, and their interests, and pick interesting people, to interview based on that.
So who are we interviewing?
Unfortunately, it's
Crap.
we picked you not only because you are our first guest, and it's kind of somewhat poetic and all cute and
Not
fartsy.
reminiscent.
Here it comes now. Flatter me. Yeah.
But we also picked you because you are single-handedly one of the most interesting people that I know, and I would think that Jesse would feel the same way. You've got so much going on for you, and you do so many different things, and you do well.
You guys need
at
friends.
them.
Better friends.
I think the most I ever had was 8.
Oh.
But it's just,
We
I
can
think-
literally
I don't know,
write the list.
Jesse, are we still friends? I don't. Oh no, he's shaking his head no. So
Moral obligation at this point.
And let me get through this can, and we might become better friends.
All right, so I'll start the questions off. Andy, being that this is Fansplash and it is a huge nerd base, comic book related, all sorts of things in the fandom, quote unquote. What would you say that your start was in the fandom?
Of just being a fan of anything in general.
When did you start being a nerd about something?
I think it's kind of hard to pinpoint a day. I think that, slowly...
Well, I want it down to the...
April
exact
22nd,
Okay.
1987.
I thought you were going to say 20th, and I was like, you were in the mindset that does not count.
No. No, I think it was more... I found myself recognizing more with these things that were fantastical and I guess didn't exist because...
Oh, God.
nobody likes reality. But, I started getting things... as like gifts or toys for when you're a kid, and Star Wars being one of those primary things, and family members or friends would give them to me as birthday presents, and I slowly started accruing all these things, and then that branched out into not collection wise but interest wise other sci-fi and I guess you could say fantasy. I think it's fair to say that Disney had a lot to do with that because I was raised in the 90s generation of basically the core of what popular Disney films are now with Aladdin and Lion King and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think we all feel that.
Yeah, and so that spurred me into art, and I wanted to be an animator, and then that segued into comic books, and then that segued into novels and audiobooks, and so it was kind of this big transition of mediums, whether it be toys or audio or visual. I think it all just amalgamated into this mess of nerd that you have 33 years later, before you now. And luckily for us, everyone at this table and everyone out there, nerd culture became cool culture.
Suddenly and very fast.
And that
We're
wasn't
lucky
that wasn't
we
a
didn't have to
thing.
live too long through the part before that.
The Stranger Things days.
Nerd shame was definitely, a thing. And, being in junior high in like the mid 90s when like Eddie Bauer was popular and Abercrombie and Fitch, like if you didn't have that kind of stuff, you were the nerd. And it was, I guess, somewhat frowned upon. And you did have your nerd friends, as everyone has their core group of nerd friends. But now we're the ones that get to laugh and be celebrated because it's kind of come around the other direction.
We're the ones waiting after the credits, laughing at the idiots leaving the theater.
Exactly. And, we're not...
You guys are stupid.
first-
I know there's a post-credit scene.
First timers.
Yeah. And it's funny to know that we're not the bandwagon. Like,
Right.
I guess we're the wagon, and everyone's trying to jump on board with that. And, so you have the quote-unquote hit people trying to jump into this nerd culture, and we've been, don't call it a comeback. We never...
But we're certainly not gatekeepers.
No, but we're keymasters.
I understood that reference.
All right, Andy, so when did it start with Star Wars for you? What was the turning point?
Easily when I was probably before 10. We had the basic VHS trilogy, and I'd
The
watch it.
unaltered versions?
Yes, yeah. And before the remasters in '97. But my dad always watched them, and when we would watch them together as a family, he was kind of the one that would explain to me, that Obi-Wan is essentially Luke's teacher, and so all these little points that are obvious in the movie, anyone that's seen it one time could tell you, to me was like this hidden nerd knowledge that my dad knew all this stuff about Star Wars. And so it kind of became a thing for me. And, it wasn't like he and I got into Star Wars together or anything. It was just because I thought he knew so much about it that made me want to know more about it. And in reality, my dad's seen the movies, and that's pretty much it.
Right.
And it never stopped with me. It just kind of snowballed and became a collection, and then the books and reading, and I just needed to know more, especially with what was the canon universe at the time. And
Not Legends.
there was all this stuff, all this information that was out there, especially with novels, all the Timothy Zahn stuff, primarily, that I didn't know, and I needed to know more about them. And so I'd start buying the character compendiums and all the encyclopedias of ships and planets and races, and I just never stopped.
And that's just how your collection started?
The collection started, like I said before, more as like presents and gatherings of things, but I'd open them. I had a box full of open 3.5, figures, and then later in the 90s, because Kenner kind of went dead for a little while, they went dormant, Episode 1 came out, and so I just immediately started collecting. And I had a sizable collection, but everything, like I said, was open, and ships and stuff I'd get at garage sales. So then I started looking back at the early 90s, the 95s, the 94s, and started backtracking with the collection. And while I'm waiting for all this new material to come out, I just started building and building and building. And you go to antique shops or garage sales or wherever you could find stuff, especially if it was something you'd never seen before. And I'd search through price guides and see if I could recognize anything that I'd seen anywhere else and try and find it. And eBay slowly, became this monster.
Yeah.
And so, I had a junky eBay problem for a little while that cost me a lot of money.
How long did it take you to trust eBay?
I did right out the gate.
Really?
It was right out the jump, because it was this access to, I'm a teenager with internet, so they're lucky that's all I'm looking at. And so I would save my money and I'd actually have an account, but it just became too easy to start clicking. And so I'd actually accidentally bought an original New Hope poster for like $2,100 because I thought I was funny and like kept raising it a penny, and then I won. And I had to email the seller like, hey, sorry, I'm 16 years old. It was my little sister. She kept clicking the button while I wasn't at the computer. And they were like, so if you're out there, this didn't happen. And
I think the statute of limitations might have passed.
Yeah, so he, didn't try and pursue that. And I kind of ran away with that one. But I stopped eBaying after that.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it was just like every movie that came out, you just kind of get merchandise from that and then keep looking through garage sales and stuff? Or
yeah, I definitely tried to get everything that they put out for, all the prequels, but I would look for more expensive items or, like statues and busts and of things from the originals, and more unique items that, would never get opened. And, now I don't open anything, or I have to buy duplicates of it to open it. And I was fortunate enough to have a good job where I made good money. I lived at home, so I didn't really have any bills. And so for a solid 6 to 7 years, I mean, I could just collect whatever I could fit into my bedroom. And then once I moved out, and now I have a whole house with display cases and extra rooms and shelving, it was just that much more of an avenue to really expand my collection. And
it's phenomenal in there. Jesse and I have been there a few times. It's like its own museum. It's like a Star Wars museum.
And see, it's bigger now.
It's very hard to do a podcast in there because I'm just so distracted.
Well, I want to go. It's like a candy shop. I want to go, rifling through some of the stuff and looking at it. Do you still have? It's like an R2D2 fridge full of lightsabers.
It was a Pepsi cooler. It's
cooler,
a massive,
it's fantastic,
double life-size Pepsi cooler on wheels. And actually, since the last time we did that podcast, I had an extra room, and so I bought a bunch more shelving, and all the things that I still had in boxes of boxes of boxes, I finally unloaded. And so now I have an entire room, 360 degrees of shelves with all my ties and shoes and old shoelaces, and then a whole shelf of watches, and a whole shelf of a whole entire 6-foot shelf of nothing but action figure series and
how
models.
Many Jar Jar collectibles do you own roughly?
20.
And he is your favorite.
I could say 20. Oh yeah, hands down. He's gonna be big.
You think so?
He's gonna blow up.
He's the biggest thing since crack cocaine.
Yep.
What would you say is the most interesting thing that you have in your collection? Or maybe if you had to pick a couple, they don't necessarily have to be your favorites, but if you do have a favorite,
if my house was burning down, what were the 3 items I would take out of there?
Perfect way to put it.
Yeah, that is a great way to put it.
Well,
your picture with Mark.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have a lot of autographs, so I guess I would say I would take my first Mark Hamill autograph of a Power of the Force orange card, Luke Skywalker. I would take my Revenge of the Jedi poster. And
do you know about that?
Yes, I've seen those.
If I had to pick a third item, I'd probably have to say it's my Uncle Owen autograph that I happened to find at a convention one day, and I was like, "Homeboy's dead. I'm gonna buy this."
So you're really partial to the autographs.
Yeah, I mean, and it was, even though that one I had just purchased, it was, again, it's something that you didn't think you're ever going to have.
Seek out and go get,
right.
That's the only way that you can get it.
Yeah, and kind of one of my highlights in life was meeting, Mark Hamill, and especially as, a sole Star Wars nerd. I'm not a Star Trek. I don't have, I'm not Battlestar. I don't branch out like that. And so for as many San Diego Comic-Cons that I'd been to finally have that chance where somebody's like, "Hey, did you know Mark Hamill was here?" And it's like, I've been studying the autograph list for weeks, and I didn't know he was there. And so, to actually walk up, and this is before they even ever announced, these current films. So, as far as I knew, Star Wars is dead, minus the prequels. And so to finally have that chance to just stand there 6 feet behind the guy in front of me, just going, Luke Skywalker is right in friggin' front of me, and I'm going to get to go there and say hi and thank him, and he's going to sign an action figure for me, and all I have to do is pay some stranger $30. It's so worth it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
$30. Stan Lee cost me $150.
Mark Hamill,
highway robbery.
Mark Hamill cost me $125. But back then, I think it was a little less expensive. But back then, I say back then, but realistically, it was only 15 years ago. Now it's nice when you go to cons and get autographs because you pay a handler who takes your item or finds out what you want autographed and what's said, writes it on a sticky note, passes it down the line. When I was going to my first cons, when I met Peter Mayhew, who plays Chewbacca, you paid him directly. So it was kind of disillusioning because here's this guy who you've always wanted to meet, and you've been seeing him on a screen for years, and you've got his action figures, and you're literally handing him money
so that you can talk to him,
so that I can talk to him and have him sign something. I mean, I still loved it, but
right.
You walk away from that going, oh, it wasn't like a chance encounter where I just get to geek out for a little while. It's like I had to hand this guy cash, and it became more of a transaction.
But putting in the middleman definitely kind of helps that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Do you have any more interesting pieces or collectibles that might stand out to anybody coming into your house?
I have most of my autographs in one spot. Depends, because I have figures and I have headshots and stuff like that. I think what really kind of gets people is the bulk of it.
Yeah.
Because it is such a massive collection.
It is a great collection.
And, it is a fun thing to live in the middle of. And have a woman who is willing to live in the middle of that and slowly, kind of come into the fold.
Might I interject? If you were to give a Star Wars planet name to your humble abode, what would it be? Tatooine, Coruscant? What best fits that collection?
I'm going to say Ilum, which is the planet that lightsaber crystals are farmed and taken
Kyber
from.
crystals.
Probably because, to me, it's just this bright, shining mecca that really encompasses who I am as a person, and like a lightsaber is something that becomes you. And I've definitely become my collection. I mean, literally with my tattoos.
Which brings us to our next point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next question for you. Every time you're on the podcast, I ask you to show the camera your tattoos.
And we can't.
Sometimes if the lighting's good. We've just never gotten that down quite well. But Andy, you are covered, at least on your arms, and I know on the back of your neck, in Star Wars tattoos. Do you still to this day have only Star Wars tattoos?
Yes.
How many would you say that you have?
13.
13. And when did you get your first one?
When I was 18, I was working for the movie theater, and I had a buddy.
With Jeremy Johns?
Who was, no, it was a different theater, but same company. He was just
branched out at the theater.
He was up on the hill, and I was at the bottom of the hill. But I had a buddy, and I said, man, I'd always want to get, as dorky as it sounded, I wanted the Empire symbol on my left arm, or right arm, and then my Rebellion insignia on my left. And he was like, screw it, dude, let's do it. Let's go get tattoos. He wasn't getting the same ones. He just also wanted to get a tattoo. And so, you had to take a step back and go, holy crap, somebody really wants to do this. Am I doing this? And so
it begins.
Which is always the thing with your first tattoo.
Yep.
After that, you're just like, oh,
exactly, yeah, it's whatever. And
that's where I'm at right now. Got to take the first step.
Yep, it's that first hurdle, and it was super intimidating when you're 18 and you're going into this, what to be is just a very intimidating environment of a tattoo parlor, because all these guys are pierced and inked up and looking at you like, who the hell are you? And
taking 50 smoke breaks an
right
hour,
and this was before I had found my current artist, who's done all my great pieces and my very detailed pieces, because this was just simple, the symbols, no shading, just black. And that first time you hear that zzz, 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 it's just like, that's going in my skin in a minute,
and it's going to be forever.
Yeah. And my buddy that we had matching appointments, he bailed.
Oh, really? So it was just you.
So I'm left there, and with money
that's
in
when
hand.
it's fight or flight.
Yep. And I said, all right, let's do it. And it was fantastic, and I loved it.
And when you're 18,
I bet that felt good coming back to him though, and being like, yo, you might have dipped, but
yeah,
I don't know if it was the same for you, but for me and all my friends, when we turned 18 and we all got our first tattoos, that was all we were. It's like, I got a tattoo. Oh, you have a tattoo? Oh, that's a nice tattoo. I can't wait to get more tattoos. It was just all about the fucking tattoos.
Yeah, and that was kind of the fun of it. Was I remember looking back at old pictures when I have like 2 tattoos or 3 tattoos, and they're all just simple black outlines, and I'm just like, I thought I was so cool. And then I started actually getting real tattoos and real images. And now is when I'm proud of showing off what I've got. And it's fun because a lot of people are just like, you are covered in Star Wars. And it's not something you see every day. And there's plenty of us out there that are just like me, covered in Star Wars. But luckily for me, I have a fantastic tattoo artist, and so my pieces actually are very well done, and I don't look like I'm
the saber hilts are my favorite as far as the detail goes and the design and the look. And
I think those are just the placement on them is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
But I have to say, like, just looking at your tattoos, this one in particular, they are amazingly detailed.
And it's fun.
And your artist has to be really good because I've never seen tattoos that detailed.
And you
or
have to
that
try.
well
It's
done.
definitely a trust thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the fun thing was I went to a Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim a couple years ago, and I'm standing in line to meet Anthony Daniels, who's C-3PO. And there's a girl in another line next to me. How they do these autograph lines or tables all the way up at the front around the perimeter of the room is there's one table with Mark Hamill, one table with Anthony Daniels, and each line is separate. So we're standing next to each other, and I'm looking at this gal's arm, and she's dressed up like a rebel pilot, and she's got this beautiful tattoo on her arm, and I can't remember what it was, but I just sat there staring at it, and there was something about it that drew me into it. And then about 5 minutes later, she taps me on the shoulder and she says, "Where do you get your tattoos from?" And I said, you wouldn't know him. He's a guy over in I say Seattle because, when you're in another state and you're from Washington, you just
Right.
you don't
have
say
to
Seattle.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Well, that's where I'm from." And I said, "Well, his name is Peter Dominguez out of Arcadia Tattoo." And she goes, "I knew it. I knew just by your tattoo on your arm that's who it was." And I said, "I've been staring at your arm too." And she goes, "Yeah, we have the same tattoo artist."
That's
And we'd never met before, and she actually went on to win best tattoo for the entire convention.
Wow.
From this artist. So I'm super stoked that I just happened to stumble across this guy like 10
Yeah,
years
like
ago.
a really good guy. Does he specialize in Star Wars things, or
He specializes in nerdy tattoos. I mean, he loves doing, and that's kind of the fun thing is having an artist that is a huge geek. And I've traded him, Star Wars gear for tattoo work. I mean, because he collects too. But so if I ever don't feel like paying cash, I can just bring a collectible that I've got, a rare collectible, and I show him what it's worth, and we go from there.
Wow. All right, Andy. I would like to get into talk about your art. Now, I've known you for a few years, several, and I think one of the coolest things about you is that not only are you an artist, but you take your passion and you use it in your art, which I suppose a lot of artists do, but you don't stick to just one threshold. You branch out a little bit. So
Yeah.
let's talk about your art. When did you start with that?
So early on, I wanted to be an animator for Disney, and I had taken what we thought were legit classes, which was cool, from these two guys, and they claimed to be former Disney animators. So they taught us how to make these large. We'd find an image of that was always Disney, so from like a picture book or something of whatever character we wanted, and so he'd show us how to shade with Prismacolor color pencils and how to blend colors. So I actually did learn a lot from him. Turns out about 5 years later, this guy was actually on the lam for copyright infringement. He'd never worked for Disney.
On the lam, even.
So
Okay.
the locations where we were having these classes were like rec center, painting studio. They kept changing every few months because they were actually on the run.
Oh,
Yeah, so it was real interesting. But I actually learned a lot from that. And
Who gets to play you in the documentary?
Weasley.
Rupert Grint?
It'll be Weasley. But
Donald Gleason.
so from there, I had taken a painting class. I was terrible. All of this was 12 or younger, and I actually had gotten good at drawing. And when I had started to like comic books, I couldn't. You can't just take what you see on a page and just create it. So for me to learn how to draw and learn how to interpret how they make these lines and all these shade lines and how the human form works is.
Can I ask you a comic book related question very
Yes.
quickly? Do you prefer the Marvel run of Star Wars comics or the Dark Horse run of Star Wars comics?
I think Dark Horse because they have more content.
Okay.
But so when I wanted to learn how to draw comic books and stop worrying about kid stuff and Disney stuff, I would trace. I would find an image that I liked, usually a female, and I'd get a light box and tracing paper, and I would trace the character from the comic book page. And that slowly taught me how these lines work. And then it went from tracing to looking at the image and duplicating it. And I kept doing that until I got good enough to where I could think of something in my head and create it. But I always still needed a reference. And for me, I realized I couldn't do comic books because I have that difficult situation where I can't just keep drawing the same thing,
Sure.
like a face, like a character's
Right.
face. I can create one still item. So like I'd be great for covers, but if you wanted me to draw panel after panel after panel of the same face, it's always a struggle. So I just learned to make single pieces of art, and so that's what I do now.
You know, it would be very cool, just to like divert slightly, ever so slightly, is if we could make a mock like Star Wars comic cover, like for like an episode 9 comic or something. I think
That'd be easy.
Yeah, and then you would just put like the mark, like the logo on the side and whatever, make it look like a comic book cover. I think that'd be a fantastic piece of art.
Or
very cool.
well, yeah, we could definitely do that, but like make like comic book covers. I'm sure they've been done before, but for all the previous Star Wars installments before,
Right.
just do like some sort of run on that.
Make Phantom Menace look good.
Yeah. Well, and those comics actually didn't look bad. I still have all those. So lately, within the last couple of years, I had decided I had found an image online of somebody had turned their refrigerator into R2-D2 with duct tape, and that fascinated me. So that night, I went out and bought a bunch of duct tape and did just that. Because I have so many R2-D2s, I just turned my white fridge into a duct tape R2-D2, and it was fantastic. And so I kept wanting to duct tape things, and so I turned my washing machine into a duct tape Boba Fett, and it's cool. It looks great. And then I wanted to do things that I could actually, display. You can't just
Do you call them Bubble Fett when you're doing the wash?
No,
You can't just take a bunch of pictures of a giant.
exactly, or a fridge. I can't take those anywhere. That's no fun. And so I started making duct tape skateboards.
Those are really cool.
Yeah, those are fun, but man, they're hard on your hands.
Really?
Cutting all that duct tape with an X-Acto knife. And so one day I just was like, you know what? I haven't painted in like 15 years. So I had some canvases, and I still had some paint. And pow, just through natural ability or years of making art, I could paint. And so I've since been making a large, vast collection of portraits. And I found out that Emerald City Comic Con is wanting local artists
Oh, hell yeah.
in booths. And so next year I have every intention of getting a booth and selling prints of my work at Emerald City next year. And that being said, I have those 2 Christmas present wrapped gifts for the 2 of you. So please open them, even though no one can see what they are, but you'll hear the rustling of paper.
Well,
I
I can make a visual exception.
But you can't say the line. When you see it, you can't say the line. That's the catch. You won't be able to say it. So I made one of these for my stint of portraits,
Why don't you open yours first?
and I liked them so much they're identical
Okay.
that I made 2 more.
Spoiler alert, they're the same. Oh, is this? Do I feel like a framing? Oh man, this is so rad.
Dude, this is.
Oh, I was about to say something, and then I remember you just said, "Don't say the
You
line."
can't say the line.
You can't say the line. This art is amazing.
So I made this portrait of
Can I
Admiral
say rest in
Akbar.
peace?
You can, yeah.
Okay.
One love.
Come on.
This is really good, man. And this, I mean, it looks like a legitimate. This is a legitimate painting.
It is a legitimate painting. It's made with paint.
Right. Well, I mean, I could draw a stick figure.
Right.
And with paint on canvas, it's not really a painting.
Right. It's true. It's true. Well, if you go into some museums, they may
That's
beg
one
to differ.
hall of a painting.
Mm-hmm.
This you did a good job on this, man. And you've sent me pictures of some of your other ones, and they look good. And wow.
I'm just now starting work on a man cave where I'm at, and I'm looking at things to put up.
Are you going to be allowed to keep it?
Fair question. Fair question.
Fighting words. This is my corner. It will be my corner. But I'm going to get rid of a lot of my old posters and put up themed things. And this is something that I would love to have in
This
this
is
collection.
amazing. I'm really
absolutely.
happy to have this. This is good.
Yeah, that's why I made them.
Now he's like sushi across the galaxy or something. But fantastic.
So Andy, so you mentioned wanting to set up a booth at ECC. I know you've been thinking about doing that for a while. So you think, I know that you've been hard at work doing this. You send me art pictures, every so often.
It's holy shit every time.
Yeah, it's never like it's like that's good. That's good.
Your Tarkin looked more realistic than Disney's.
Ouch. Ouch. That's hurtful.
And it looked good. It looked good in Rogue One. It was, but
I wanted a large enough body of work to actually have something to present.
right. So you
And,
think that like you've got, say you have like 5-10 of these, and
I'll make prints of all of them, canvas prints.
and then you'll sell originals too.
Yeah, and
Okay.
the prints will go for, $20 to $30 depending on the size. I also have small ones, 4 inches as well. And then I'll be making like the Jabba I just painted yesterday and that Grievous that I made. Those are a little bit larger, and so
You probably sell them for a little more.
These are some of my favorite. I didn't go this year, but I went last year to Emerald City, and these kind of canvas prints are some of my favorite like shit to get from Comic-Con. I have an X-23, one of these that is just like bleeding claws and scratched up face and stuff, and it's so awesome. So
and that's what I like to find is unique art. I don't want just pictures that are printed off the internet.
Don't look at me.
Like I want like something that somebody's made, and that's kind of what makes your collection of what you're doing unique.
Right, and
Something that doesn't
when
look overly
when you go to
mass-produced.
Comic-Con, it's hard to justify buying anything unless
Right.
it's something like this.
Yeah.
That's just like,
Yeah.
could I get this online? Could I go somewhere else and get this? Do I really need to burn a hole in my pocket right now? But something like this, and possibly like your skateboard decks or anything like that, those are something that people can't just get online.
Have you thought
Right.
about? Are you bringing any of those to the convention as well?
Yeah. Those will be like the painting originals. They'll be going for a little bit higher of a price point just
course.
because of the time,
And
especially
you
the
can't
skateboards. that they
recreate
take.
it.
No, those cannot be scanned and printed. They can't be redone. I mean,
And it's so unique. Like there's a lot of art. Like obviously your art is unique, but I'm saying there's a lot of artists out there. There's a lot of art to choose from. If you're going by a booth and you see somebody that has Star Wars duct tape skateboards, you're not gonna see it anywhere else in the entire convention.
Right.
It's not like art that it is completely different.
it's its own entity, and
that's amazing.
because of the amount of detail that's on it for being duct tape. Is kind of what helps draw the eye in. It's not just large stencils. It's not like a stencil at all. It's its actual image. It's a painting.
It's a whole
with duct tape.
process.
Yeah.
So you mentioned ECC. Do you think anything is next for you in between that with your art? Are you trying to branch out into like any other thing? Is there some sort of experiment that's been on your mind?
I've wanted to sculpt, but I just don't have the tools for that. So right now, I think setting a goal for Emerald City next year, I'm just working right now for building a large body of work and having something that I can really present a lot of, and fill up some space and give people the options that they want. Or there's tons of characters. There's tons of characters or scenes. I'm working on a cloud cityscape with just this beautiful orange sunset. So I'm going to start branching out into landscapes and or spacescapes, as it were, to give options and and just show what I'm capable of.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be interesting to see you do sculptures, maybe like little sculptures or like a bus or something. I think it with what you've done in the past. I've seen some of your other drawings, your Dragon Ball Z stuff, things like that. It's all good. So I think you of all people, if you put your mind to it, you probably do it.
I lucked out with a little bit of natural ability.
That's what it's. Step 1, have talent. Step 2, don't not have talent.
Exactly.
Step 3, practice.
And I don't get mad when a painting doesn't turn out. It's just move on.
Do you punch a hole through it? Or,
yeah. When I'm finally giving up is when I just curb stomp a canvas.
You go American History X on it.
Well, and that's the thing is that some of these, especially the more detailed pieces, I'll just get up and walk away from for whether it be a couple hours or a couple days, because you reach this point. Artists are never happy with their work, and they're never happy, or they never think that anything's actually finished. And so when I get to a point where I'm like, I've done what I can do for today. There's no way I can make this better. And so I'll pick this back up on my next day off, or
I thought that way about Luke Cage.
yeah. And then I watched the final fight to Luke Cage and was like, oh, this is the final fight to Luke Cage.
I have a question, a personal question or request. Since you have worked with painting more and also working with skateboards, and hi, those of you that don't know, I definitely have been skateboarding for about 12 years. Would you or have you thought of with like paint pens and things like doing like grip art or something like that?
Where they put like clear tape over the artwork?
No, not even clear. Just regular black like grip tape, and then just taking paint pens and doing art on the grip tape.
Do people actually skate on those? And like...
Yeah, because usually if you let it dry, unless you get it really, really freaking like dirty, like you just have muddy shoe and put it on there, they'll usually last. It like the art like stays looking good. Like I have some examples. If I look up on my phone, I've had like a Suicide Squad Joker done, a Batfleck done, and a bunch of other ones done by my friend Reese. So I would love to have some Star Wars themed stuff because he quit doing those. He's like, oh, if you want to pay $300, I'll make one for you. Like, it's grip tape, man.
Well, you have to pay him.
Yeah, obviously. But I'm saying there's a difference between like maybe like I'm willing to pay like $100. I'm not gonna, but like $300-$400 for like grip tape, it's gonna get snapped.
I've got some skateboards that I'm actually just gonna paint the underside of. I've never.
I'd put those on my wall.
Yeah,
obviously I wouldn't skate those.
I've never worked with paint pens or on grip tape. I don't know how well
It's kind of like dots. It's like skate. It's like paint dots. You kind of like dot your way through it.
You might be able to get more out of it, but I think some. I don't know. I don't know shit about skateboarding. I haven't done it since I was 16. But I paid more for like a board that had like clear grip tape and a design under it.
Right.
And like, I don't know.
I would also totally pay for like I would like buy a deck and have cover the bottom of the deck up and then do art on that.
Yeah,
really, really
cool. That'd be something that'd be easy to do. And right now,
that belongs on my wall.
The project I've only just begun and haven't picked back up because I started painting was I was making a Hoth duct tape snowboard. So
sick.
Yeah, I found a snowboard at a Goodwill and then I blanked it all out with white duct tape, just rows and rows of white duct tape, and then I'm just gonna build a Hoth battle scene.
Wow,
that sounds really awesome.
AT-ATs, damn it. AT-ATs on one side, and then like the
snow speeders,
and the ion cannons and stuff.
Wow,
the trenches.
I'd like to see more scenery work for sure.
Yeah,
because I've been staring at it, I have to ask you about your right hand wrist tattoo, or palm back of the hand tattoo. Mm-hmm. Is that comic inspired? Because there was, I don't remember if it was a comic or a book called Vader Down, and there was a very similar piece of art.
Yeah, it's a painting.
Okay.
That's just basically a direct replica of.
Okay.
Yep, it's probably the one you're thinking of.
Okay, so now that we know about, your collection history and what's next for your art and sort of the direction that you want to go, all the things that made you you, let's go into what's coming up for all of us.
Yes.
And that would be Marvel's Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good segue, and we'll talk about Solo in a second. We'll talk about, The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to kind of get the ball rolling for Jesse here, because I know he's very excited. The Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Spanning 10 fucking years. Sorry. But Iron Man to Infinity War, 2008 to 2018. Did we think we could get here?
I want to know if you thought we could get here. How has the Marvel Cinematic Universe led up to your expectations, if at all?
It has not affected me in the slightest. If they told me that they weren't going to make any more Marvel movies, I wouldn't care.
Are you not super into the whole Marvel movie thing, or did it kind of like hit a peak for you, and then it's just like kind of there?
I think for me, I was never a Marvel kid. I mean, everyone knew X-Men, and we had the cartoon in the 90s, but I read a lot more Dark Horse and Image comics and Top Cow stuff. So for them, like when they came out with the first Iron Man, I'd never read an Iron Man comic in my life.
Neither had I.
I just saw the cartoon that was in the late 90s, I think.
I had seen like that a few times, but I never liked it.
With the real Mandarin.
And, it's like Captain America. Everyone knows who the Hulk is.
Right.
I didn't know who Hawkeye was, and they were just Scarlet Witch. Like, these are all characters that I'm unfamiliar with, so I don't have any affinity for them. Get it?
Sure.
Yeah. So it was really my affinity war with myself. And, so they're movies. I was never, we won't get into it, but
the camera's off,
I wasn't
you can't see my baffled, offended look.
I wasn't Team Toby with Spider-Man. So again, I wasn't impressed there. So I was just waiting for good iterations of characters that I knew about, and I'm still waiting. So
Do you think they could get better?
I do. I mean, I think the farther we get along with technology, movies are going to get better.
I think we could get much better with X-Men.
I think there's more interesting characters out there.
Yeah. Oh,
we need to explore all these characters.
Like
Omega Red.
Decent.
Yes. Give me Mr. Sinister. Give me Omega Red, and let's talk. I mean, give me a good Lady Deathstrike. Like, there are characters that should be addressed, and they're dealing with these nonsensical characters that don't need to be around. So it's like Juggernaut could have been way better. So there are just little things.
Definitely
in there.
couldn't have been worse.
Yeah, there were characters I was excited to see, and it was just unfortunate that for me, in my opinion, they couldn't get them right. It was like the most recent iteration of Storm. I was more ecstatic about her than anyone. It was like, she's finally got a white mohawk.
And a freaking African accent.
Everybody took a shit on Apocalypse. I thought it was one of the better ones.
I prefer Apocalypse to Days of Future Past, personally.
Well, you get to think that, and that's fine. I think that Apocalypse was sort of a cheese fest, but I think that's kind of what to expect.
They were afraid of making a cheesy X-Men movie, and I think they needed to. Because Marvel has some cheese, and it's very entertaining.
Yeah, but there's difference between like cheesy and corny or campy.
That's very true.
It's just kind of like, this doesn't fit. And so, it's like, I'm glad that when Infinity Wars, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. It's nobody's ever going to be happy. We're in a generation where no one's happy. So I think once it's finally over, I'm interested to see where they go with starting over again. It's like,
Avengers 4.
Who's our new Logan? Let's get a new Logan. Like, let's. We don't need to necessarily go into the remake factor yet, but give us some new plot lines. I don't care if you recast them.
Well, I think they'll probably recast everybody when they start merging X-Men into the MCU after Dark Phoenix.
I think it's going to be a lot easier for them to merge Fantastic Four, because you can drop Fantastic Four at any point in the cinematic universe without any explanation, really.
Well, Silver Surfer is kind of important into Infinity War, but
so is Adam Warlock,
right?
And
there's a lot of stuff going on with the cinematic rights to a bunch of bullshit.
Oh, how about Lady Death?
A lot of juggling that we've had to put up with. That it's kind of made this because I'm with you. Before the first Avengers movie, The Avengers, I wasn't so stoked about Thor. I didn't give a shit about Thor. I didn't give a shit about Captain America. I sure as shit didn't I didn't care about Iron Man.
You don't know about. I didn't know who Loki was. Okay.
Right, and then granted, I saw the Avengers, and I actually really liked that movie, and I thought that it culminated those movies well, and I went back and watched the previous Iron Man movies, and I had always liked the Captain America movie, even though I knew nothing about it before. But
talking first Avenger,
yeah,
so much better than people give it credit for.
I was entertained. I just didn't care.
And that's totally fine. But given that sort of circumstance that I just brought up, are there any sort of Marvel films that kind of caught you by surprise, maybe Guardians of the Galaxy or something?
I did like Guardians of the Galaxy, especially another thing I knew nothing about.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm in the same boat. I had no idea what that was. Jesse, do you know?
Ragnarok. I really liked Ragnarok.
Did I know Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Even the great Jesse Swift.
But they turned it into a very successful franchise.
And it did really well.
Yeah, it's great.
Like
Spider-Man. I'm looking forward to Venom. I'm super stoked on Venom. I hope it goes well.
Me too.
There's a lot of ways it can go well, and a lot of ways it can go
wrong. I'm a Tom Hardy sucker.
he's really good in one of my favorite movies, Lawless.
Mm-hmm.
That
Lawless
movie
is a fantastic movie.
You should get back over here if you're going to be talking.
He's also great.
Lawless is a great movie. Sorry.
Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders.
Peaky fucking Blinders.
Peaky fucking Blinders.
He is a great character in that, and
I haven't caught that one yet.
It's fantastic, and I think I'll always put him on the pedestal for Mad Max.
Yeah, dude, Fury Road is
stunning,
such a good movie.
Stunning.
Yeah, when I heard he was cast as Venom, I was I wasn't like no, I was. I was for it.
Well, I thought he could be a good Eddie Brock casting wise. I've always been 100% on board with Venom, and I was like, you don't have to have Spider-Man per se in the movie, but Spider-Man has to exist. Like,
Right.
And there's a difference there.
Did you say that you liked Spider-Man: Homecoming?
I did, but I mean, I liked Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man.
So did
as well.
I liked the Amazing Spider-Man 2 a lot, and most people hated it. So,
But yeah, Homecoming was good.
I think Sally Fields turned in some Oscar-worthy caliber performance in that movie. It was very emotional.
so we'll wrap up the Marvel discussion, but I just want to know, like, is there any
Deadpool.
thing that you think that like you might expect out of seeing Infinity War?
Who's gonna die?
I guess who's gonna die? Who do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm interested to see who's going to finally deliver the blow. Like, I don't know if we're going to see the glove fully pieced together. I'm going to sneeze any second.
Bless you.
I don't think
You can try.
The water would burn.
But, I'm interested to see just how many stones make it into the glove.
How stoned does Thanos get?
Exactly.
Oh, they're not gonna kill him in this movie, right? Yeah.
Who's to say?
That'd be such a waste.
They
You
kill
can't-
all their villains, and they never killed any of their heroes. It's or besides like Quicksilver, but
Zemo's alive.
does he count? Zemo, the one without any powers.
Red
It's
Skull could be.
Is
alive.
Howard the Duck finally going to get his shining moment?
Oh, I'd like for him to have more than 2 lines.
Seth
That'd
Green.
be- yeah, it'd be great. Who's to say? How do the Guardians mash with the rest of the Avengers? It looks
Well, we
not
just
good.
know
I,
that.
I think from the trailer, it seemed like their silly humor of their universe when they meet up with Tony Stark and he says something about, like, I'm going to make a plan because your plan sounds stupid or something like that. And I was like, I don't know if that's going to mesh.
Yeah.
They have their own different styles of humor, and I think that's probably why Ragnarok was the way it was with all the humor.
I love the interaction between, and I think at some point or another we will go in a full discussion of the Infinity War trailer, but the interaction between Peter Parker and Doctor Strange is like, oh, hi,
Yeah.
I'm Peter Parker, I'm Doctor Strange. Oh, we're using our made-up names. Then I am Spider-Man.
Yeah, I thought that was good.
And there's been some really funny memes that have come out about, like, you dumb little idiot, my name is Doctor Stephen Strange.
So you like the Marvel movies, okay, but you're indifferent to them. You don't really,
Right.
Okay, and that's
I see
that's
them,
totally
they get my
understandable.
money,
Yeah.
but I'm not like Jesse, where I'm not waiting for opening day to come.
Did somebody say opening day?
Yeah,
Do you feel a little
I have
better
my
about like
tickets already.
Deadpool? Are you more interested in seeing Deadpool too?
I do
than-
because they don't have to follow a structure.
Okay.
It's very
There are
fourth wall
tropes.
breaking. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that doesn't bother me at all. And,
Marvel, you kind of know what to expect. Deadpool, you kind of have no idea.
there's a
Right.
there's a safety net with Marvel.
they,
Sure.
they
It's
can
like,
kind
I'm
of
gonna
do
get
whatever
this
they
formula.
want with Deadpool. So yeah, no, I think I'm very much looking forward to Deadpool.
Awesome. Or would you lean more toward? I know they haven't lived up to people's expectations, but like comic book wise, more character attachment. Did you ever have more of an attachment to like DC characters?
I would really like. I mean, I know they made the TV series and the anime, but I would love to see, or video game, a great Witchblade movie, a Darkness movie, or a Fathom movie, and those are all Top Cow / Aspen storylines. But they're such great characters, and I mean Jackie Estacado is just. They made the games, but the games didn't do it justice. So I think I would almost like to get away from Marvel and DC and branch out into the other
Right. Things that
production companies.
Image Comics,
right.
things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Aphrodite 9. I mean, like there's some great characters that they can.
Well, I
build
even
on.
like seeing like Dark Horse and stuff.
Preacher is a comic.
Yeah. Have you watched?
Oh, it's an
Preacher?
amazing show. Yeah,
Dude, it is such a good show, and there's a lot of inspiration to be taken that isn't necessarily mainstream, and it has turned out well. Even Legion on Netflix, yeah, it's Marvel, but it's not like
It's actually
right.
FX.
It's its own entity.
what did I say? Netflix? I meant FX.
That's okay.
But it's it's separate from that. Preacher, probably my #1 favorite show. I love that show a lot. And
I really need to get back into it.
yeah, you definitely need to watch it.
I think they can
Walking
do.
Dead. There's so much there that has a great potential to be successful, And especially when you got something like the DC cinematic universe where they're taking mainstream and they're fucking it up.
Right, they're floundering.
Yeah.
I think if they looked into some of the larger graphic novels, I mean, they did so well with Watchmen that I think they should do Sandman. I think it's a
They have been trying to do Sandman with Joseph Gordon-Levitt has been trying to make that movie for so long.
But they would have to do it right.
Right.
Like they couldn't. It would take a lot of time because Sandman has a lot of content.
And Watchmen is going to be an HBO show now.
Okay. How much material is there in Watchmen series?
There is a just like unprecedented amount of mythos that you can go either direction, forward or backwards with Watchmen.
Okay.
Like you don't have to follow the straight comic.
Okay, I thought it was just like a straight line. I thought.
Well, there is, but if you remember the movie, there was like all those events that took place before the Watchmen, like
Right.
Sure. Okay.
the bulk of the Watchmen took place. There was all these things that happened. Like with the comedian was part of the original Watchmen, and there was the original group of superheroes and things.
So again, there's more.
You could
stories
go
for
either
content.
direction. You could go past the movie,
Branch
before
out of
the
the
movie.
content. So
Sure.
you're saying stop oversaturating this with Marvel. You're okay with comic book or superhero or just like whatever movies just taking fold in the media, but they don't have to just be Marvel,
Right.
Marvel, DC, Marvel.
I found out Jon Favreau got the Star Wars live action series,
Yeah,
That
how do you feel about
sounds
pumped about that.
fantastic.
John Favreau.
and they're going to give him the budget. They're going to give him the
Well,
budget.
they have to give John Favreau the budget.
He has a like
Disney and Jon
0%
Favreau.
failure rate.
Right.
Like it's
Jungle Book. Who would have thought that he would touch gold with Iron Man? It's so crazy.
and he's doing Lion King. He is another one of Disney's golden childs right now.
Yeah.
Currently.
And I've always been a fan of John Favreau. Swingers, Made.
How about what?
Sneeze 2 strikes back.
What kind of projects are the creators of the the showrunners of the Game of Thrones show doing with Star Wars? Because that's
I'm
also
really
a thing.
hoping that that's more of like a Knights of the Old Republic era.
It's gotta be right.
You'd think,
Or
but decide
Ryan-
they're gonna like want to branch out to the future.
So we have, and I've tried to break this down with like multiple people.
I'm gonna
It's
blow
like,
my nose.
Okay.
People are like, oh, there's too much Star Wars content. I was like, point A, you're wrong. Point 2, you have Jon Favreau doing a Star Wars television show, which is awesome. And then you have the showrunners of Game of Thrones working on, it sounds like movie properties. And then Ryan Johnson's also doing a new trilogy. Holy shit. And you didn't like the sound of Rogue One coming out. So how do you feel about that?
Well, this is something that we gotta definitely ask Andy when he gets back from blowing his nose. Let's just pause it.
No, then I have to me, no.
All right, Andy. Now
Star
you're
Wars
back.
Rebels is now over. We were just talking about all the projects that are going forward with Star Wars, and Dave Filoni will be continuing his animated run after Clone Wars and Rebels. We have Jon Favreau doing a live-action TV show, which is what I'm most pumped about. And then you have the showrunners of Game of Thrones working on movie properties, and also Ryan Johnson working on a new trilogy. That is a lot of Star Wars. They're going via Marvel route.
They're
Just
going
content,
full-
content. Drown in our content. We could have a
How-
Star Wars streaming service.
How do you feel about this? Because I know that you're a huge fan of Star Wars, but Star Wars used to be this few and far between gem
Right.
that would come out. Statistically 3 years apart, and then now they're doing them 2 years apart, and now there's one every year.
Exactly.
Plus
Now
shows
episodes can
coming
be
on.
literal.
Plus, there's all sorts of stuff that they're adding to the canon, so and so and so. Us being Marvel fans, we get pissed off with something like an Inhuman show or
Right.
even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for some fans.
Oh, sorry,
It's
I
like
just threw up.
we don't want everything to be the canon. How do you feel about Star Wars branching out like this much? I guess there's always been an EU, but like now that
As long as once they start getting into original storylines, like there's once we're done with the Skywalker era, I think there will be a lot less complaint because they'll be able to do what they want, and I think they're right now still in that bracket of being compared to the legacy storylines, and naming Ben Solo, who was Ben Skywalker. There's so many controversies that they've created for themselves, and with the whole I enjoyed Last Jedi. These are all movies that I never thought I'd get. So I don't complain, because as far as I knew, it was never going to happen. And then finally they announced The Force Awakens, and it just started this monster again, this tornado of content. And so I'm happy with what I get, because I wasn't expecting it. Am I nitpicky? Sure. Do I have my
Concerns?
My concerns? Yeah, but I mean, it's not going to stop me in my fandom. It's otherwise after episode 1 I would have been done.
I guess that's a very good point.
It's I love it for what it is and what it means to me, and I think there's definitely a lot of fuck you JJ moments.
Oh my God!
We're not going to list them.
To fuck you, JJ.
But I think the biggest fuck you, Ryan Johnson, is I get 3.
Right. So we can finally. Then that's why I don't complain about The Last Jedi, is because there's still answers that we can get. We have one last shot.
What's your hopes for the Ryan Johnson trilogy?
Well, it's going to be completely unrelated. We don't know where it is in the
Broom Kid. It's all about Broom Kid.
We
100%.
No.
Yeah.
Come on.
We don't know where it is in the timeline. He could have the Old Republic, as far as we know. This
is that something that you think is that's like what you really want to see out of it?
I think it would be cool to see a more primal take on the Force, and especially with a lot of the older, especially the dark side. It was a lot of alchemy, Sith alchemy. It wasn't direct Force lightning and natural ability. It was a chemistry, a tinkering, and there were still holocrons, there were still lightsabers. They were power packs. So the base of the Jedi and the Sith are still there. Your core ingredients are still there for the soup, but now they can make it a little bit more primal.
You can make Darth Revan canon. Jesus.
And they have mentioned recently that they will be bringing more legacy characters into the canon fold, like Thrawn.
Oh.
So they have said...
Thrawn's officially canon, because
right.
of Rebels.
But they've said be prepared for more legacy characters to be brought into the canon fold. So, I'm looking forward to...
Yeah, I was just going to say
to those. And, I mean, there's a lot of great Jedi that, were no longer in existence. So
what if it's something that's completely out of left field? It takes a couple examples, but that it exists in the same universe. It turns out to be good. How do you feel about that? Totally original.
I'd completely support it. I'd love new content. I mean, I think that's kind of the problem. It's golden handcuffs. Everybody wants Luke Skywalker. They get Luke Skywalker. Now they're mad that they don't have the Luke Skywalker they wanted. So
that's perfectly put.
I think if you just clear the slate, we know what the Force is. I'd say they can't change it, but Rebels kind of did that for their last few episodes.
Shit. I didn't watch it, but I know.
There's a space-time continuum that Palpatine...
Speed Force, okay.
Yeah, that...
a Force.
That Palpatine's apparently trying to access, that would allow him to basically open any point in time. And he could alter it. He could alter any point in time through this Force nexus that's in this quote-unquote Jedi temple. If that was the case, he'd be hunting for that throughout any storyline that you would have with Palpatine. Why wouldn't he? That's way more powerful than him working these political machinations. If he could just go into time and just be like, nope, never mind.
Right.
So I think they kind of took a step too far there. But as long as they stick with I'm not going to say midichlorians, but the central essence of what the Force is, good versus dark. It doesn't even have to be balanced. One's going to be stronger than the other at any given time.
Sure.
Let's get a really dark series going. Let's have, the Sith. I mean, I guess they were doing that anyway with the original trilogy, but I mean, let's make it dark. Vader killed populations of people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the movie I want to see. I want to see the Jedi genocide, because they didn't get them all with Order 66.
Well, it's crazy, because one of the things in why I brought this issue up to you is because people are still chomping at the bit. I want more Vader. I want more Luke. I want more Obi-Wan.
You're not going to get it.
But you get a Solo movie, and you're like, who the fuck is this guy? Who wanted this? You did. You
yeah.
asked for it. You wanted it.
No.
I think he's the only one that has any mystery left in his character. You know where Leia was. You know she was being raised by an adopted father. You know Luke was just squatting on Tatooine, hating his life. You knew that Vader was busy running the fucking galaxy.
But Ewan McGregor is just so goddamn fun to watch.
Oh yeah,
that
and it'll be great. I think I think there's a problem there. There's a Obi-Wan Kenobi novel, and it's during his time on Tatooine, in between the Luke period, and the synopsis is simple. It's just there's an internal conflict, a civil conflict on the planet. He shouldn't help because he's got to stay undercover, but he helps anyway. But he's got to worry about his secret getting out. Well, it doesn't happen because the movies are there. So to me, that book was irrelevant. So
Maul finds him.
Right, but this didn't have anything to do with that, and I think there kind of lies the problem with a Kenobi movie. It would be awesome, and I would love to see it, and I would be completely happy, but it's hard for them to come up with a valid plot line because you know how it turns out. So, with new content, you don't know how it's going to turn out.
Right, or non prequels with like the current movies, like Last Jedi. I didn't know any of that shit was going to happen.
Right.
I went in there not knowing what to expect.
And there's really cool characters like the Fallen Jedi that they're not Darksiders, they're not Sith, but they broke away from the Jedi Order and they were just called the Fallen. And so there are some cool gray areas that they can play with.
Right.
What would you think about either television or movie wise the idea of Dave Filoni directing? Because I think that he story wise has earned his shot at really like taking his expertise, knowledge, and passion for Star Wars and giving us something other than the animated shows.
I think he did, and he did it well. And I started hating Ahsoka when I first saw her in the Clone Wars animated movie, and then seeing a character like that go from being this annoying kid who's got stupid nicknames for Anakin, Sky Guy, that it drove me up the wall. But then I slowly see her become this very well trained, fully capable being, and I respect that process that they took to do that, and it took season after season after season after season. And so I think as long as he stops taking so many liberties with the Force, I think he could do just fine.
Well, if he goes live action, they're going to reel him back a bit.
Right. And the question is, how many series is Disney going to produce? And, they're putting this new live action series on their upcoming streaming service, which they claim is going to be cheaper than Netflix somehow.
Well, if it's got Marvel and Star Wars, it's got me.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Are they gonna
$15
transition out of Netflix, or are they gonna keep?
I believe so.
There?
The Marvel Netflix, I haven't specifically been told, but the public has been told the Marvel Netflix will stay on Netflix because they are Netflix properties.
Gotcha.
But everything else, movie wise or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., stuff like that, that's all going to be on the Disney streaming service.
So yeah, I guess to answer your question in a roundabout kind of way. With as much content as they're delivering, I'm just happy to sit back and be a fan and watch.
You're excited to see what's coming. You're not.
I am.
You're not wanting to pump the brakes. You want to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I love
not
that
even
perspective.
Not even from a collector standpoint. Like I don't collect every single thing that comes out. Now, being a responsible adult, I really kind of pick and choose what I buy. So I've slowed down on my collecting, and so at first I was concerned, like I just had to accept the fact that I can't fiscally support all the swag that's going to come out for every single movie for every single year. I'd just be homeless with a huge...
Well, now that they're pumping out so much, it'd just be impossible.
So I find the one or two items that I really like, or high-priced items that are really well made, and I get those.
Okay. Have you picked right so far?
Yeah.
Any of your Force Awakens stuff worth money yet?
No, that stuff really hasn't appreciated yet,
Okay.
and I think the world is kind of still on the ropes with that trilogy. So I've gotten the exclusives and the rare items and the Black Series figures and whatnot, but there's no direct value on that kind of stuff yet because you still see some of it marked down, in grocery stores and toy stores and whatnot. So I think that's going to be a while.
I asked you that question and I was just thinking, I was like, I don't know why I'm asking because I still see Force Awakens toys at the store.
Exactly.
But, I'm sure there's, all sorts of stuff like that.
So now, I have my goals. I'd love to have a life-size Han Solo and Carbonite. But
question: do you plan on having anything of the new trilogy thus far in tattoo form? Is there anything that has inspired you?
It's crossed my mind. I would love to have a Grandmaster Skywalker portrait. I think that'd be fantastic. I haven't really latched onto, even though I love Rey's character, I wouldn't get her tattooed. What
about the First Order symbol? So that's a pretty cool symbol.
It is a nice...
complete the trifecta of...
It is a nice symbol, but there's a billion symbols. I could cover myself in emblems and
logos
the Mandalorian? Of different factions. It's over my right shoulder blade.
I was going to say, he's not a Star Wars fan. He doesn't have that.
So, it's tough to say. There isn't anything that stood out to me in this new trilogy yet that has made me want to get a tattoo.
Super Leia?
Kylo Ren.
Super Leia.
If I were to get one, I do.
I like Kylo Ren. Yes,
but the mask.
He needs the mask back. He needs. He can do whatever he wants.
Fuck you, JJ moment number 672.
Kylo Ren to me is like, oh, well, we sucked at doing Anakin, so we're gonna do it again, but we're just gonna do a better job.
Yeah,
and it's like it's like the other side.
Perspectives here, because you remember how I'm like, no, don't fucking saturate Star Wars, but the way that you put it has just made me think. You're right. Let the dominoes fall.
Right.
Well, watch it happen. There's so much we want to see. Why not let us see it?
Yeah. There's nothing we can do about it. It's
fantastic.
And if there's just all the Star Wars content, because there's so much content, at least you're probably gonna like something.
Right. I mean,
you don't have to like everything.
And you don't have to like everything.
It's like Marvel. I love Marvel. I don't like everything.
Right.
No, you can't.
Marvel's my Star Wars. If I'm gonna get tattoos, yeah.
All right, Jesse. Do you have any final questions for Andy?
I'm staring at him intently.
Oh man. I don't know. Kind of as they've popped up, I've definitely asked, but I would assume you are more excited for Episode 9 than Solo.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, okay, that's a fair assumption.
I think it's everyone at the table.
I like it. You got me really excited for the future of Star Wars. I'm seeing a better light now. It's done a lot, and I really love this, and I really love you coming out here
absolutely.
And letting us,
thank you for having me.
Pick you apart and answering our questions and telling some interesting stories about yourself. We'll have to have you on again.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, after I get all my teeth ripped out and put back in, I can start working towards voice acting.
Oh, that's right.
So that'll be a fun follow-up.
Did you want to touch on that a little bit? I remember you tried soundproofing, and you had a whole thing that you were gonna.
Without any. I'm
not gonna tell. Yeah.
Yeah, without any direction whatsoever, I had an extra closet, and I bought a bunch of soundproof padding, and I had my microphone, and I thought I knew what I was doing, and then after I was all done, it was like a week of prep and getting all this stuff on the wall. I looked up soundproofing a closet, and it said, whatever you do, don't soundproof a closet. And so I'd wasted all that time, and because you still had that hollow sound.
Mm-hmm.
And so it didn't go the way I wanted it to. But I've done my the classes, and for me it was you need headshots, and you need to be able to go see people, and I'm a confident person anyway, but the condition that my mouth is in isn't ideal for taking a picture smiling or opening it a lot, especially if that's what you're doing for a living. So in about a month I'll spend $36,000 for them to rip everything out of my head, and then I
put it back.
Yep, and eight hours later I'll wake up with a full mouth of teeth with removables that I can take in and out for 4 months. And then after that 4 months, they go in and fit the real ones on there, and I can't take those out, and so I'll be photographically ready, and so
$1 million smile.
Exactly.
You won't be left with any of this.
exactly. So
your hero, Mark Hamill, has done a fantastic job in voice acting.
yeah, so I'm trying to take his spot. so we'll see. Yeah.
Well, it's great. Have you done more research on it? You know what to do.
I know what I need to do, and I know what it'll take. So I'm excited to finally get past that final physical hurdle, and beyond that, I'm just going to try and hit the ground running.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming, Andy.
Thank you.
That was Andy McKillip, past,
you.
present,
Handshake,
and
handshake.
future.
Yeah, we're shaking hands. You can't see.
This has been
Feel the handshake.
This has been what's been going on with Andy and what will go on with Andy, and then we'll hear a lot more from you in the future, man.
Possibly on upcoming audio podcasts. Might be, don't worry about the content, might be a little bit shorter, but we rarely see Andy and wanted to catch up on all kinds of good stuff. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll keep more of these coming, as well as trying to get back on track with our visual podcast as well. So again, thank you so much for joining us, guys, and hope you had a good time.
Happy 2 years to Fansplash.
Love you. Bye.
May the film be with you. My God, I haven't said that in a while. I was like, what are you pointing at me for? What is this? What is this nonsense?